If you or a loved one has ever experienced harm because of a medical mistake, you might be wondering how to prove negligence in a medical malpractice claim. Medical malpractice is one of the most complex areas of law, and patients often feel overwhelmed trying to understand what they need to prove. In this video, we will walk step by step through what it takes to establish negligence, what kind of evidence you need, and the common challenges that come up in these cases. By the end, you'll have a clear picture of the 4 essential elements that must be proven and the practical steps you can take if you believe you are a victim of medical malpractice. Let's start with the first element, which is duty of care. To bring a malpractice claim, you must first establish that a doctor-patient relationship existed. This means you were under the care of the healthcare professional you are accusing of negligence. When you go to a hospital, clinic, or private office, and a doctor agrees to diagnose or treat you, a professional duty is created. This duty is not just a moral obligation, but a legal one. Healthcare providers are expected to deliver care that meets the accepted medical standards for their field. Without this relationship, you cannot move forward with a claim, because you need to show that the provider owed you that duty in the first place. Once duty of care is established, the second step is proving a breach of that duty. This is where you must demonstrate that the provider failed to meet the standard of care. The standard of care refers to what a reasonably competent doctor with similar training and experience would have done under the same circumstances. For example, if most cardiologists would order certain tests for a patient presenting with chest pain, but your doctor did not, and that decision was below the professional standard, that could qualify as a breach. This part of the claim almost always requires expert testimony. Another doctor in the same specialty is called upon to explain to the court what should have been done, and how the accused provider's actions fell short. Without this professional input, it's extremely difficult to prove that negligence occurred. The third element, and often the most challenging, is causation. Even if a mistake happened, you need to prove that the error directly caused harm. This means showing that if the doctor had provided the proper care, your outcome would have been significantly different. For instance, imagine a situation where a patient's cancer diagnosis was delayed by many months because of misinterpreted test results. If this delay allowed the disease to progress to an advanced stage that could have been prevented with timely treatment, causation is established. However, if the cancer was already aggressive and the delay made no difference, causation becomes much harder to prove. Defense attorneys often focus on this element, arguing that the injury or outcome would have occurred regardless of the doctor's actions. Finally, the fourth element is damages. In other words, you must show that you suffered real harm as a result of the negligence. Damages can take many forms. They might include additional medical bills for corrective treatment, lost wages if you were unable to work, or long-term loss of earning capacity if you are permanently disabled. Damages also cover pain and suffering, emotional distress, and loss of quality of life. Without measurable damages, even if a breach of duty occurred, the case will not move forward. Courts require proof that the negligence had a tangible negative impact on your life. Now that we've gone through the 4 key elements, duty of care, breach, causation, and damages, let's look at the types of evidence you will need to prove your case. The most critical piece is your medical records. These documents provide a detailed history of what was done, when it was done, and by whom. They can show whether procedures were missed, tests were misread, or treatment was delayed. Another powerful form of evidence is expert testimony. An independent medical professional can review your records and testify about whether your care met accepted standards. Testimony from you and your family about how the injury has affected your life also plays an important role. And finally, financial documentation, like pay stubs, tax records, or bills, can help quantify your damages. Medical malpractice claims are notoriously complex, and there are several challenges patients face. First, Medicine itself is complicated, and sometimes bad outcomes happen even when doctors do everything right. The defense may argue that your injury was simply an unfortunate complication, not negligence. Second, both sides typically present medical experts, and the jury must decide which expert is more credible. This means the strength of your expert witness can make or break your case. Third, causation is often hotly contested. Proving that the doctor's mistake, and not your underlying condition, caused your harm can be difficult, especially when dealing with illnesses that are already serious or unpredictable. So, what should you do if you believe you are a victim of medical malpractice? The first step is to gather all your medical records as soon as possible. These will be the foundation of your claim. Next, consult with an experienced medical malpractice attorney. These cases require specialized legal and medical knowledge, and most attorneys will work with a network of experts to evaluate your situation. Your attorney can arrange for a medical expert to review your records and determine whether you have a viable claim. You'll also want to keep track of all expenses related to your care, as well as any ways the injury has affected your work and personal life. It's also important to understand that every state has a statute of limitations, which is a deadline for filing a malpractice lawsuit. If you wait too long, even the strongest case may be dismissed. That's why speaking with a qualified attorney as early as possible is essential. In summary, proving negligence in a medical malpractice claim requires connecting 4 key dots. First, you must establish that the doctor owed you a duty of care. Second, you need to show that they breached that duty by falling below accepted medical standards. Third, you must prove that the breach directly caused your injury. And finally, you need to demonstrate that you suffered damages as a result. With the right evidence, expert testimony, and legal guidance, it is possible to hold negligent providers accountable and secure compensation for the harm you've suffered. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who may need this information. Medical malpractice cases are challenging, but understanding the process is the first step toward justice. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.